It is November 22nd, I believe, and winter temperatures finally arrived here in Indiana. I gotta say that I was ready for the temperatures to be here. However, we had some really warm temperatures during the beginning of November. We were definitely way over the average highs, and that kind of made a few plants that I still have in my raised beds kind of develop and even bloom again. I'm gonna show you a couple of examples, but I have a bunch of herbs here that are still thriving. I did my best. I definitely tried my best early on in the season, about the beginning of October, to clean all of my containers, most of my planters, but life got in the way. I got really busy with other things, and some containers still have a lot of the plants. Some of the potting mix that I wanted to empty out of my containers before the really cold temperatures arrive are still there. I have a lot to do still. Now I still have a lot to do to prepare my raised beds, my containers for the winter. And right now is one of those days where it's supposed to be in the mid 50s, although it's a little bit cold this morning. I definitely have to take advantage of these temperatures to get as much done as I can. My biggest concern right now is taking care of my greenstalks, which I'll show you in a minute, but also taking care of my hosereels, getting them ready for the winter. One of the things that I am super excited about that reseeded here is all of this abundance of cilantro. Cilantro for me is really easy to grow. It does better in the spring and in the fall, especially the fall when it reseeds from the plants that I let go to seed in the spring. And this is an example of just how one plant that I had growing there in that corner bed pretty much developed all of the rest of the seedlings that I have here. I already have been harvesting a lot of the cilantro. I did direct seed some beets in there, and that's the color, the purple colors that you see there. But the rest is just cilantro that I have been pretty much harvesting from, and it is also going to seed. It is going to seed, and if it actually develops, if the coriander seeds actually develop, then they'll be the ones coming up next spring here, and I do not mind at all. Like I said, herbs are definitely thriving here. I have this purple sage that is just loving it here right now. I planted these guys early in the spring, and I don't use sage that much in my cooking, although Thanksgiving is coming, so perfect timing for that. But also parsley. Parsley is one of those that my husband really likes, but he's the only one in the family that really likes to eat it kind of raw. And I don't use it in my cooking that much, definitely not as much as I use cilantro. And that one tiny plant definitely grew and grew and grew. We have been doing a lot of construction in our home, in our front of our home, with the front porch, and construction is in full mode right now. That's why you see a lot of just remnants of all the construction, all the work that my husband and I have been doing. Mostly him, of course. I have been helping him here and there, but my green stalks, this is the spot where I have them. I definitely wanted to do more. At this point, I wanted them to be ready to go. Definitely, time has gotten away from me. But the biggest one that I am concerned, especially right now, is my strawberry one. I have one single vertical garden, one of these green stocks, just for strawberries. You saw this year kind of how I planted them. I started them all from little bunches that I got at my local nursery, and they did amazing. However, this last month, I decided to stop giving them water, and I thought, they're going to go dormant, they're going to go to sleep, and I think that most of them did, although the ones that kept getting rainwater at the very, very top, as you can see, with the warmer temperatures that we had later in the fall, they started producing more strawberries. But today is definitely one of the last days that we're up in the 50s. Next week we're going to be getting the highs in the 20s, believe it or not. I saw some of those temperatures, so I just gotta get these guys out of the way. Normally what I do with my green stocks, if I am not worried about the plants in them, normally they're annuals. Most of the years that I have been using these green stocks, I have been growing annuals. But normally I just get them out of the way, or like in this case, since they are going to be permanently there, I will just leave them there. I don't have to worry about emptying the soil. I don't have to worry about them cracking through the winters. Here in my central Indiana zone 6, I don't have to worry about leaving my green stacks outside in the weather, because I know that they are heavy duty and I know that they're going to go through the winters really well. However, this year being my first year growing strawberries, which are perennials in my zone, I do want to make sure to give them protection from the winter, especially being in this spot where they are just exposed to the wind and to the snow. What I'm going to do is that I am going to take this vertical garden apart, level by level, tier by tier, and I am not going to get the plants out of there. I'm just simply going to place the 5 tiers of this original, I believe that's the original style green stock. I am going to put them against my garage, or on the east side or on the west side of the house, just so that they are protected. And I'm going to grab a bunch of leaves, which my neighbors have a bunch of trees. I'm just going to rake a few bunches of leaves, and I am just going to put them on top. I am not going to worry about keeping them completely protected, because I do want them to get snow or rain throughout the winter. And this is really my first year with strawberries, so I am not really sure what to expect next year. Like I said, I wanted to get this done earlier on in the season, but time got away from me. So that's pretty much what I'm going to do. The other 2 green stacks are just going to stay there. I do have plants that are starting kind of to develop a little bit more because of the fall, because of the warm temperatures that we had. I have some peppers there that apparently are starting to come up again. They're just going to stay there, and the soil that is in there, the soil that is in these other 2 containers, is probably good soil. And if I didn't have the need to add more or to get that soil somewhere else, I would just add some fertilizer at the beginning of the spring, add the plants, clean it up, get some of the roots out of there, and that will be good to go. However, I do have plans to have a couple of raised beds in another part of my garden, and those are going to be new. Those are going to be taller raised beds, and I am going to reuse the soil in these green stocks for filling the bottom of those raised beds. That's what I am going to do, because I do have the space for that soil. But if I didn't have the need to move this soil, that soil is very nice. It is just a medium. It is probably lacking nutrients because it was used throughout the season, but that's easy fixable by adding more nutrients in the spring. And that's pretty much what my view of reusing potting mix, whether it's in containers or in green stocks. If it's looking good, if it didn't have any sickness or disease, if the plants weren't attacked by anything crazy that I was afraid that was still dormant in there, I will definitely just reuse it for the following spring. In case that if I had some sort of plague or something got sick, or I wasn't sure about the health of the soil, I would just get rid of it completely. But I didn't have any problems whatsoever with the soil in these green stocks. And like I said, many people do love to empty their green stocks completely every year using new soil. And if you're one of those, that is fine. Whatever works for you, keep on doing it. For me, it doesn't make sense to empty these guys if the soil is great, if the medium that I have been using there looks good. So that is just my point of view. Now, my hosereels are definitely one of those things that I have to make sure that I take care of them through the winter. They are not supposed to be left outside in really cold temperatures. If you are getting freezing temperatures in the 20s, definitely upper 20s, I will be okay if I am getting low 30s. But definitely in the 20s is too cold for them, mainly because they're holding water and they could crack, they could break, just like any other hose that you have outside. This is probably the longest that I have left my hose reels outside because, like I said, it has been kind of warm, but getting in the 20s next week for the highs, these guys are definitely going to go in my unheated garage. But before I do that, I gotta make sure that I get all of the water out of here. So I just want to show you really quick how I do that. With the hose fully back in there, I am going to unplug the water access to it. I am just going to unhook it from the water. The water is off. This thing is unhooked. And what I'm going to do is that I am going to take the whole length of the hose out of the reel. The hose is out of the reel and it's unplugged. It has the two ends open so that when I start pushing the hose back in, when I start letting the hose back in, I am going to try to raise the hose a little bit so that gravity pushes the water out from either end. And that way I am not storing a hose reel full of water because one, is going to be super heavy, and two, my place where I'm going to be storing this for the winter is a detached unheated garage. So it could freeze if I do have something in there that has liquid. So just don't want to risk it. I want to protect it as much as I can because these guys are not cheap. These guys are definitely worth every penny. I have had these guys for 4 or 5 seasons already. They work amazing, but I do have to make sure that I do take care of them through the winter, especially if you get really harsh winter temperatures. Now for this to work, you have to make sure that both ends are actually open. I was starting to bring this back in and there was no water coming from one end. That's because the hose is actually turned off. So let's do this again. There we go. Definitely try to raise your hose high before you bring it in. That way the water just comes out from each end easily. And you could do this a couple of times if you want to completely make sure that most of the water is out of there. I just do this once. That's definitely enough to get a lot of the water out of there. So now that I have my water out of this hose reel, I will just remove this from the post and bring it inside my unheated garage. And probably around March, early April, these guys will come out again. I do probably will take a few minutes today and clean it up a little bit, taking some of the dust. Normally I like to get the covers for these guys. This year I didn't do that, but I think definitely getting the covers will gives them a little bit of protection throughout the season, especially from the birds and all of the dust that just gets collected in here. So that's just like super easy way for you to take care of your hose reels. Definitely the better that you take care of them throughout the winter, the longer that they'll serve you throughout the gardening seasons. Like I said, I have these guys for forever and I love them. I cannot imagine my garden without them. So I am going to get the other two ready for the bringing them inside, and it's super easy. and I'm going to be doing the same thing, getting the water out, giving them a little bit of cleaning, and that's pretty much how I take care of my hose reels. Hopefully you enjoy this video. I have a few more coming up for this month, well, November, December-ish. Hopefully you have a great Thanksgiving. Hopefully you got some great holidays coming up, and I will see you on the next time.